You guys know how I was saying that I won't be taking like lumber loads and coils? I don't know what I was thinking, but I don't know what I'm doing yet, so I'm learning. So yesterday I delivered some coils and today I'm delivering some lumber in a curtain side. Guy here is really nice. The way this truck was loaded, this is a relay load. It's real weird. And I'm like, did this load shift or is it just loaded this way? Can't really describe it to you, but it's just weird. So we'll see how this goes. But it's nice to come into a place when the forklift operators are nice. And a lot of times they are very cool and very easy to work with. More of the time than not. Well, hello again. So here's the latest. Today I'm sitting in a Love's. I'm really grateful actually that this Love's is close to where I was and that it's only a year old and it's a good size Love's with plenty of space. I'm focusing on the things I'm grateful for. I'm grateful that this was here. I'm grateful that I still have my platinum status from before when I was working enough to actually be fueling consistently and getting points at Love's, because that way I have available showers and I don't have to spend any money on showers, because the way things are going with my job this week and the way they structured our pay for training, I'm not really getting a regular paycheck this week. I'm getting a fraction of a check this week. And on top of that, I'm going to be sitting indefinitely. I was just told by my dispatcher, I feel like I was debating whether I wanted to close this curtain, but I can feel the heat. It's actually very mild outside. After being in 100-degree heat yesterday, this is much preferable. Yesterday, I think I made a little video clip about this. I was pretty incensed. It's a great day to be doing unpaid labor, don't you think? Can't tell you how much I love it. They asked me to go to this small business and this mom and pop and do a drop and hook, and it was basically dropping my empty trailer in a door and then moving 3 other trailers that they had sitting in their doors out of the doors and onto the periphery of their parking lot. And that was basically the duties of a yard driver, but they asked me to do that and they told me that I would not be paid for doing that. So that was 45 minutes of my time. It was the time it took me to drive there, which I don't even know if I get miles for driving there because it wasn't part of an assigned task. And they set it up in a way that, I think the way they set it up is it was en route to our terminal that I was going to pick up a relay. So that way they didn't have to pay for any drive time and they didn't pay for any on-duty time. And it just blows my mind that they can give you a task that is totally outside of anything. Like, it's not securement, it's not time spent toward moving a load, it's time that you are doing a task independent of a task you would be getting paid for, and you're not given any type of pay for it. It's ethically bullshit. So that was number one. Number two is the reason I'm trying to focus on being grateful for the positives of the situation I'm in right now. Also getting some rest because I've been really run down, and I actually just was sitting and waiting to hear anything at this last customer after getting unloaded, and I was about to start editing video and I laid back in my bunk with my laptop open and I ended up taking a nap for like 45 minutes. I've been so tired because it's just been a long week and a long couple of weeks, really. All of August has flown by and I've barely driven, which is stressful because that's how I get paid, you know. So I finally get a hold of my fleet manager. He's very hard to reach because he has just too much on his plate, clearly, especially because he's new at the job, and whatever. I've gone on about that enough. I'm starting to question if I made a mistake coming back to this company, and I don't regret leaving the company I was at because running reefers was killing me. I'm much happier that I'm doing physical labor, even though I'm not getting paid for some of that. However, I definitely am concerned about, am I going to make enough money? Because the way it looked before, it should have been somewhat of an even switch financially. And the way things have started out is very discouraging. It's like, you're asking me to do free work. How often is that going to happen? He said it's not very often, so fingers crossed that that's true. But now, this drop-off was in Minnesota. I was giving myself a pat on the back because everything was really smooth. It was by Minneapolis. It's a place I never like to go. It's congested and it's just not a great place. It's not terrible though. There's definitely worse. But finally I reach him, the fleet manager, and he tells me that there's a chance I could be stranded in Minneapolis for days, because that happens sometimes, because apparently they have a hard time getting freight. He's like, well, the bad news is you're in Minnesota. And I was like, okay. And I think it depends on what, my guess is, I could be totally wrong, but I think it depends on what type of freight you're moving. And I'm running a curtain side right now, so that's a very specific selection of freight. I imagine if you're in Minnesota, based on what I've experienced as a driver, you're probably better off if you're running reefer or dry van. There's more freight for those lanes in Minnesota, maybe. I don't know. I'm pulling that out of my ass from my very limited experience. But what I do know is that I'm now sitting, and I still have 7 hours on my clock, on my 11. So 7 hours of drive time left today. And I've got 5 hours left on my 14, and technically I could use an additional 2 hours because I sat for long enough to obtain a split. And the odds are I won't get anything today. And it's just like, so I might be stranded in a truck stop for a couple of days, and their layover pay maxes out at $60 a day. I'm like, this is a really not good way to start. This is not a good way to start, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna financially hurt. After 2 weeks of training pay, they delayed the second week, so I am not getting paid this week. Basically, it's like a tiny check, and then the following week, I'll get paid for that, and plus the miles I was able to run this week, but it's very little. I'm stressing, guys, because I'm like, how long is it going to be before I end up making enough money again to be where I need to be? Everything feels very uncertain, and it's really freaking me out. I'm trying not to let myself get too freaked out. I'm trying to accept that changing jobs in trucking is always tricky. But if I've moved over to a larger carrier where I was given a range of what I could expect to make, and granted, when you first start out, you're not going to make what they call the average. You're probably going to make at least a couple $100 a week less than that. But if I'm going to make half that, because they're not even going to give me freight, they're not even going to keep me moving, I can't stay here, you know. And the last thing I want to do is change jobs again. I'm just like, whoa, this was not something I expected. And it's a thing that happens, I think, to plenty of drivers, where you're like in a groove, you're working, you're like in the middle of your day, and then all of a sudden everything comes to a screeching halt. This is the second driver in a row I've watched drive out of here, driving with the left hand, looking down at the phone that's in their right hand. How the fuck do you get a CDL when you do that shit? That makes me so mad. It's like, I can understand how we look at our phones from time to time, but if you're actually holding it in your hand, it's like you're just flipping off everyone around you, like you don't care about anybody. Anyway, yeah, I'm really frustrated. I'm really frustrated, having a hard time with words. And I'm just going to try to make the most of however long I'm stranded. So if it's a day, if it's a couple of days, I kind of hope that they give me a call when they do send me a workflow, because I'm going to be like totally not in the headspace of work, and then all of a sudden it's going to come through, and am I going to miss it? It's stressful right now. It's a stressful situation, but this is what it is, you know. This is trucking. That's trucking. I always say it. And I wish that there would just be like one period of time while I'm doing this line of work that things were smooth, that I was making consistent income, that I was working for people that I felt like had my best interest in mind, but I just don't know that that really exists. Anyway, you never know. Things always change. That's the one constant. So it's all, in the grand scheme of things, I always come back to the same tome. None of this matters. I like to come back to my multiverse theory. Can you guys see the bump on my head? You can see the red there? Yeah. That's where I hit my head on the bottom of the trailer yesterday. Oof. I'm going to take a picture of it to show you why it looks different than the trailers I'm used to ducking under. And I heard a cracking sound when I hit my head, and I was like, whoa. Yeah, there's all kinds of hazards in trucking. You gotta watch yourself. Anyway, see, finding things to laugh about, even if it's laughing at hitting your head. You have to dig deep and stay positive however you can, and remind yourself that everything is a season. Things change. Everything's gonna be okay. It's just gonna be crappy for a minute. Let's hope. Let's hope. I have unlimited showers until the end of August, because that's what I was starting to say earlier. I still have all these points from my previous job on my Loves account, and they're gonna at the beginning of the month it's gonna be gone because I have not fueled like once all month, because I left the other job, did Lollapalooza, and then I've only fueled at my company's terminals since then. So I have like no points. So I'm like, if they're gonna leave me stuck for 2 days or 3 days, I better just have access to free showers, because I am not spending money on showers. Okay, that's enough. I'll catch you guys later. Good morning, my friends. Happy Sunday. I thought I would enjoy some coffee time with you. This is a delicious newer roast from, of course, Dark Matter Coffee in Chicago. My favorite. I spam them so much. It's been a very odd period of time. I hope you guys can hear me okay. I tried to plug in my lavalier mic into my phone with a very old dongle. Side note, the word dongle is objectively hilarious. Anyway, it didn't seem to make a difference in sound, so I just decided to record as is. But there's an older Volvo running next to me, and another truck by me just started up. But I'm parked at my favorite Quick Trip, and I'm actually parked on the peripheral part of the lot right next to the pond, and there's all these like Queen Anne's lace and thistles and cattails, and fortunately a only small amount of garbage, and which I have half a mind to clean up, just half a mind. That's a good ass strong cup of coffee right there. Yeah, I was gonna title this video "Where's the Freight?" and only some people will get the sort of subtle joke in there, because I'm thinking of the cranky old "Where's the Beef" lady, and you have to be at least a certain age to know what I'm talking about. So if you don't, Google it. It's been a really strange period of time, and I don't want to just make videos where I'm complaining about things. So I'm not trying to come to it from that perspective. I'm just trying to share a story from a driver out here, because I know my story is really common right now. And it's very odd. And this has been a very strange way to start a new job, even though it's at a company I've been at before. It's a new job. It's a totally new role, working in the flatbed division, and I'm hauling curtain sides so far, which has been, I think, a really good sort of interim between van and flatbed, regular flatbed. I did tell my fleet manager that if they need someone to cover a flatbed load, please do, give me those loads if you need them covered, because I want to do them. I just want to get more efficient at doing stuff that involves more time before I start doing stuff that involves a lot more time. And anyone who's worked with me would probably agree that I tend to work slower, and I kind of have come to a point of accepting that with myself. It's part of the reason I could never hack it in any type of professional kitchen when I went to culinary school, and then I interned in a fancy restaurant, and I am just too slow. Professional kitchens require speed, efficiency, and perfection, and that I don't have all of the above. Just maybe a couple. Anyway, that's a random ass side note. But I'm sitting here, I'm in Wisconsin, and I just spent a day and a half sitting, and I talked to some of my fellow drivers who also started in this this cycle of training with me for flatbed, and they all were sitting too. There were a bunch of people sitting at our terminal in Indiana. I was sitting in Minnesota. They ended up deadheading me, and I had asked them if they would do this already, and they said no at first, but then they ended up relenting, and they just said, okay, you're gonna head to the terminal, another terminal in Wisconsin that was 179 miles of deadhead. One of my other fellow trainees, really good guy, I think he's gonna do a great job, they had him deadhead 400 miles. And he told me that it seemed like everybody was getting dispatched at the same time after we all had sat for like at least a day. So it's kind of interesting, and it's making me wonder what's going on with freight in general, but also are there some specific things going on with flatbed freight? I can't believe this, because I listen to the news. I listen to NPR every day for usually a couple hours, 2-3 hours. Chicago joke for you there. I was talking to my mom yesterday, and she told me about a closure, sort of partial closure of the Panama Canal because the water level is too low for larger ships to get through. And I'm like, how did I not hear this story? And that made me wonder if there's kind of a throttle on freight happening right now, on specific freight. It's a really weird feeling to start a job and be like all motivated and like kind of like, okay, I'm nervous, but I'm gonna do this, and then just to have everything grind to a halt. It's a really weird experience, and it also is obviously troubling because on top of having our training pay delayed by a week, I'm also just spending so much time sitting on my butt, which as you can see is what I'm doing right now. So let's see what ended up happening. They had me deadhead to pick up a loaded trailer, and basically they sent me relay to relay. So they had me relay that from one of our terminals to a drop yard. So all of that was between Minnesota and Wisconsin. Now I'm in southern Wisconsin, pretty close to the Illinois border. I had a conversation earlier with a dispatcher, and there was some weird confusion. They're like, okay, go to that drop yard and grab an empty. And I told them, I was like, I was just there last night and there aren't any empties. And I was confused because all of our trailers have GPS. So I don't know how they weren't aware that there were no empty curtainside trailers in that location. But I'm glad I didn't just blindly go there, because I would have wasted some drive time. So he told me, well, okay, so you're scheduled for home time. And I was like, what? So it's just been a weird thing too, because previously when I started at this company, at the end of training, they had me and another driver sit down with our fleet manager and actually talk about dates and like, when do you want to be home and how long do you expect to be home for, and kind of, saying what the real expectation is versus what we were told by recruiters, and just sort of settling things and getting things in gear. And I didn't get to have that because I think my fleet manager, he's newer, he's still training, and he made a mistake and he sent me a day too early to go get my truck. So I missed the last day of training, which, as you may have noticed in my last video, I don't think I missed a whole lot. I was kind of relieved, to tell you the truth, to get away from that shitty energy. He sent me to get my truck, and it was kind of like time sensitive. Like, this is a brand new truck, and the way it is like, if you don't get a truck, if you don't go grab that truck now, they're going to give it to somebody else. And I think that's a real possibility. So I was like, I'm there. And it's definitely been worth it. It's a great truck. It does have some of the funny new Freightliner quirks that I have discovered in every Freightliner I've had so far. One of them is it gets confused about the hood latch. Whatever sensor tells it that the hood is latched, it'll tell you that OptiIdle is not available if certain conditions are not met, and one of them is hood latch, when the hood is in fact latched for sure. Stuff like that. There's little quirky things, but it's okay. We know how you are, Freightliner. We know you. You've been friends with us for a while. We're familiar with your quirks. We all got them. It's okay. So yeah, why are so many of us sitting on our butts right now? How many other drivers watching this are also having a very long unwanted period of downtime? And it makes me think about how this has been such a similar issue in different lines of work that I've done, of not having enough work. And it's such a weird feeling to be a highly motivated blue-collar worker who just wants to work really hard and to like struggle to get enough work. There's something really wrong with a system that has things set up that way, that people who want to work struggle to get enough work to get by, and like we all have to fight over crumbs. You guys hear me rant a little bit and sound a little anti-capitalist, which is, a mixed thing for me, because I'm a participant in a system that I don't really like in many ways. And that's one thing I don't like. I don't like the idea that so many of us work so hard and that we have to like fight to get enough work. Just even saying that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It's a very odd system that we live in. It's no wonder so many of us are struggling with our headspace all the time. Okay, I guess I just wanted to say, one of the things that is a weird feeling, and like I'm saying this because I know other truck drivers will relate, but I'm also sharing this for those who don't drive trucks. It's so weird when you're ready to work, but because your job is tied to your living space, because you live in a truck, you can't determine how, like, your motivation keeps going up and down, because you're like, okay, it's time to work, and then there's no work, and so you're like, okay, well, I guess I'll chill, and then you can't chill, you can't relax, because it's like you're waiting for that dispatch to come through, you're waiting for the little ding on your phone, or you're waiting for a pop-up on a screen to tell you, oh, it's time to go again. And so what that leads to is a situation where you never really relax, because you're always just on edge waiting for that dispatch, because that's how your bills are going to get paid. And it's a tricky part of this life where, and I think too, just to you know, in fairness, a lot of like desk jockey types, a lot of people who work cubicle type jobs or like, you know, tech jobs or whatever type of office work they might have, because of the connectivity of the modern world, a lot of those workers don't get the downtime that they should be getting. So their boss knows that they're perpetually on call basically, and they can sort of abuse that, and they're always like contacting them when they're supposed to be on their own weekend time, their off time, and it's like they feel a pressure to be responsive all the time. This trailer is so dirty. I'm like, damn, what happened there? I saw him driving by and I was like, ooh, gnarly. Anyway, sorry, I guess I'm being real repetitive here, but it's weird to feel like you're ready to work, you're a hardworking person, you want to get out and do the job and earn the money and bring home the bacon, and you can't because it's not there for you. It's so weird. So I'm grateful because yesterday I made the executive decision to drive a little off course down. So the drop yard that we have is right by 2 truck stops. It's by a Love's that is so congested. It's very small, it's very tight, it has a strange shape, the lot, and there are a number of trucks in that lot, like every time I drive through there, that are busted up from people hitting them. And I'm like, I will be damned if I'm gonna park this beautiful brand new truck in that messed up ass lot. No way. So I drove through there because I was all paranoid. I'm like, the company's not gonna want me to drive this far to park. But I was like, if I look out for number one, okay? Thanks, Mom, you taught me that. If I'm gonna know that I'm gonna be possibly sitting for at least a 34 when I would rather be driving, when I'm not close enough to home to go home and see my friends and whatever, I'm not gonna sit in a place I really don't feel comfortable. I'm gonna go down the road to this nice, clean, huge parking lot, Quick Trip, that has a decent selection of food, nice employees, pretty clean showers. You know, I'm not gonna stay anywhere near that Love's where my truck is in danger, and I'm not gonna stay, there's a Pilot across the street that has been under construction forever. It's probably still is. I didn't really look because I didn't go inside, but I took a drive through the lot, and I just hate that Pilot. I've been stuck there before. I think that's where I filmed the Walmart Schneider video. I'm pretty sure, because I was stuck there on a 34 once, and back then I was like, never again. So now that I know this Quick Trip is here, I came down here, and the whole time I'm driving, I'm like, they're gonna call me and they're gonna be like, where are you going? I'm like that kid in school that's like always worried the teacher's gonna notice they're not being perfect. So yeah, I came to where I knew I would be comfortable. And then to those of you drivers who relate, there's a lot of drivers out there that are kind of like pride themselves on being hard asses and stuff. Good for you if you're like that. More power to you, my friend. I am a very sensitive person, sensitive to noises and smells and stuff like that, and you have to just get used to certain things in the trucking world, which I have. But because I know how I feel and how things impact the way I feel, like when I'm at a place like this that has a pond with some nice natural beauty and there's space to park a bobtail, I'm gonna choose to park over here instead of parking with trucks on either side of me, because it feels more private, it's more relaxed. There's actually a really nice grassy space here where I was just doing a little bit of yoga. It's a great thing to do, so always keep that in mind if you're a driver who is newer and you feel kind of like I do, where you tend to just be like, well, I'm supposed to park right here. Don't worry about that. As long as you're safe, as long as you're in a spot that's not blocking anyone, or that's not going to have someone knock on your door when you're trying to sleep to ask you to move, as long as you're in a place where your truck isn't going to get hit, ideally, then park where you feel comfortable and you're going to be fine. And even more so, if you have a new truck, try to park in a place where you're the least likely to get hit, because there are a lot of new drivers out here that might not be very good at backing. And if you're asleep and they're backing and they can't see well enough, leave your running lights on so they can see you when you're parked in the dark, if you're in a lot that doesn't have enough light. This is all a bunch of random stuff, I'm rambling, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna put some makeup on and do some video editing and try to kill some time, because I'm sitting here for another 34. That's 2 in the last 3 days, and I can't afford to be doing this. and I really hope these guys will get me moving. I have a load scheduled for tomorrow, picking up in Indiana, heading into Ohio, so I'm going to get a little bit of mileage there at least, and we're just going to be thankful for the little things and try to enjoy a beautiful sunny day at the truck stop. So I'll catch you guys later.